This show is based on Lakota star knowledge, and the foundation of that is that reality begins within. So, if you have a healthy within, then you communicate healthy, yeah, and you communicate from inside of you. And when people communicate to you, you will know how to process it, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. You'll know what to do. When you live healthy, you'll know what to do with it. Yeah, so that if it's unhealthy, you know how to get rid of it so that the energy doesn't stay in your body. If it's healthy, you let it nurture you. Yeah, and also um, what you're doing is when you live a healthy lifestyle, what you're doing is you're establishing peace inside of you. Yeah, you have a universe inside of you, and so you're when you live healthy, you're establishing peace there, and then nature projects this outside of you. So that way you'll know how to get along. Yeah, um, uh, uh, to be at peace with the universe around you. Now that doesn't mean you agree. Okay, you can disagree with people, as long as you don't force your ideas down their throats. Then you're okay. You can agree to disagree and still have peace. Yeah. And this is the foundation. Yeah, reality begins within, so everything else builds upon that. And to get that peace inside of you, that you can begin by taking care of your total self. And your total self has four parts. You can picture it like a medicine wheel. The medicine wheel, the four parts are connected to each other, and they also connect at the center. And that is the sacred area. So you can use this to represent yourself. Yeah, the four parts being your physical body, your mind, your emotional self, and your soul. Those are the four parts of yourself. So when you do your best to take care of those four parts, you're going to um, establish peace in your life. Yeah, and this is going to include things like you know, exercising and eating healthy. Just don't go extreme. Yeah, you just do what you can. When you go extreme, that's when it gets dangerous. So you just do the best that you can, and don't try to be perfect, because that's not how nature is. You just do the best that you can. Okay? And you do that to all four parts. You don't neglect one. Yeah, if you neglect one, the others are going to get sick too. If you pay too much attention to one, the other three suffer, and then they're going to bring down the fourth part. So you don't win either way. Yeah, if you neglect one or if you focus only on one, either way you go down. Yeah, the self gets sick. So that's why you do your best to take care of all four parts of the self. And it's not enough just to be warm-hearted or to be friendly. To help people, to encourage others, and that's all fine and dandy. But you also got to take care of your physical body. If you can walk, then get up and walk around. You're designed to do that. Now some people can't. So you can do other things though. Maybe you can do things with your arms. Yeah? There's still things you can do. And if you can't do that, then you visualize it. Yeah? But if you can sit up and walk around, then you can do some exercising. You don't have to, train to be in the Olympics or anything like that. It's not about being skinny, okay? Let me hammer that in. It is not about being skinny. It is about exercising and eating healthy foods. And but like I said, you don't have to go extreme. Just take it easy on the fats. Take it easy on the sugars, and you and still enjoy yourself. Yeah, eat so that you enjoy the experience. And a lot of people go gung ho on that, and they'll only eat fresh foods. Yeah, they don't buy something and put it in the refrigerator. They buy it and eat it now. They don't want to cook it. They don't want to boil it or bake it. They eat it raw. That's extreme. Yeah, and that is an addiction. Yeah, it's trying to attain perfection in something, and that leads to addictive thinking, and that's going to infect other areas of your life. And pretty soon, you're trying to just stay in one area, and this is addiction. Yeah, you're forcing yourself to feel a certain emotion, or to have your body in a certain way, and all that leads to addiction, and that's an illness. Yeah, so that's why I said don't go extreme. Just do what you can, but you still can have fun. Yeah, still, if you like your Big Macs, go out and get one every now and then. Just not every day. Yeah, just not every other day. And so, um, yeah, these are the four parts. Yeah, like I said, if you can move, get up and move. Yeah, and take a walk and enjoy the scenery. Yeah, or walk someplace that has nice scenery. Yeah, so you make it all enjoyable. Excuse me. So that's really, really, really important. And other things are too. Like when we're talking about the emotional part of the self. How do we take care of that part? Well, the way you do that is by um, how do you go through your life experiences? Like sometimes we go through difficulties, and it doesn't matter how they come to us. Sometimes it's out of the blue. Sometimes it's because of something we did. Maybe we made a mistake, or maybe it's because of something somebody else did. It doesn't matter. A difficulty is a difficulty. You treat it the same way. And what you do is you examine it. Yeah, you learn it. And but first, this is I said about taking care of the four parts of yourself. Let me finish that first before I talk about difficulties. In taking care of the four parts of yourself, eventually you're going to start remembering difficulties from your past. Okay? And so you get yourself ready. You face them one by one, and you will feel emotions. Yeah, you will. Those emotions that came with those experiences are going to come to the surface again, but that's okay. It's time to release them. So let them come to the surface because you're going to get rid of them now. Yeah. And how you do that is you express it. If it makes you cry, cry. If it makes you angry, get mad. If it makes you scared, get scared. And sometimes you might have to have somebody be with you to guide you through it. Okay? So that's totally okay to do that. And then after you express that emotion without hurting anybody, including yourself, then you start examining it. You start saying to yourself, okay, now what can I learn from this? And how can I make the best of it? And as soon as you have that thought pattern going, those emotions start marching out the door. Yeah, they're high stepping it out of the door. Hup, 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 going out the door. Seriously. Yeah? And then you start to feel peace. And then you gain wisdom. And then you gain knowledge. You just transformed it into a blessing. Because you are a blessing. Yeah? So this is how you handle the difficulties from your past. And you keep doing that. As you remember them, you keep doing that. And every time you do that, it's also going to unlock some nice memories. And you'll feel those emotions, and that's going to make you feel good. You're medicating yourself. That's kind of like a reward. Yeah? So it's okay to feel that. And keep those feelings. Yeah? So you can have fun. Yeah? Have fun remembering them. The first time you ate a cold meat sandwich and Shasta Pop, and for those of us that are old enough to know what that is, that was a delicacy back in the day, yeah. Anyway, and then see what you're doing is this whole process of facing your difficulties from the past and remembering more good times also from the past to enjoy. What you're doing is you're getting to know yourself. Yeah? And the more you do that, the more peace you have inside of you. You're establishing peace in your inner universe now. Yeah? And then now you're ready to face the difficulties in your life right now. And the ones that are going to come in the future. Yeah? You don't live healthy, so some people think that if they live healthy, that only good things will happen. No, that's not nature. Nature does not work like that. Like I said, sometimes difficulties happen just out of the blue. Just out of the blue. Without explanation. And once you understand that, actually can make you feel better. Yeah? Because then you don't have any unrealistic expectations, and you just don't worry about them. Yeah, don't worry about them until they come. Yeah, because when you start worrying about them, you're not in the present moment. Yeah, and you're losing your foundation. Now, when you establish peace in your life, like I just described here, this is going to help you stay in the present moment, and this is the best place to be, because this influences your future. The future is all based on your present thought patterns. So if you are in the here and now, as much as possible, you're actually, if you're healthy, if you're living healthy, and staying in the present moment, you're influencing your future to be healthy too. Now that's not written in stone, but that is still powerful. You can use things like visualization, having hope, and that's also going to influence it in a healthy way. And when people don't do this and they start saying, nothing good ever happens to me, and see, that's visualizing too. So that means nothing good is going to happen to you because you're visualizing it. Yeah. See, you have to have hope and visualize in a healthy way, and things will happen to you in a healthy way. Yeah, that's how it works. So to be in the present moment as much as possible really influences that in your favor. So that's why it's important to come to peace with your past. Yeah. And you're learning a skill. Yeah, you're learning how to check things out, and you're also learning how to handle difficulties. So you know that a difficulty is not bad, because when you work on it, it brings you wisdom and knowledge, and it nurtures your peace, and you see things more. Yeah, you see more of reality, and you see how beautiful it is, and also you can help others now. Yeah. So it's nothing but benefits when you think about it. It's the healthy way to live. Yeah. So, and then when nice things happen, then you'll enjoy them even more than you ever did before, because they're going to feel amazing, more amazing than they did before, because you have clarity by living this way. Yeah, this is how it works. This is the healthy way to live. This is all starting within yourself. Yeah, reality begins within. So when you live this way, you're establishing peace in the universe inside of you. That universe includes everything that makes your body, your mind, your emotions, and your soul. And the emotions, they leave. Yeah, they leave. They come again with every experience. If it's a difficult one, you learn from it. They leave again. And every time they leave, you develop spiritually. I mean, emotionally. Yeah? Every time those emotions leave, when you start learning from that experience, you start developing emotionally. And then you develop spiritually too. And your mind becomes more clear. And your physical health increases as well. Because they're all connected to each other. Yeah? So you have peace in yourself, and then it comes out in the way you talk and the way you carry yourself, yeah, the way you present yourself to the world, and you're able to be at peace with everything around you. Before you can understand the universe out there, you have to understand the universe inside of you, because reality begins within. That's the reason why it's called Lakota Star Knowledge. It's the way the universe was created, from within. Yeah? That's the way it works. Excuse me. And then sometimes what some people do is, like I said earlier, is they like a certain emotion too much and they want to feel it more. So they do what they can to stay in that emotion. So what they're doing here is they're trapping it. And then what the result is, they become addicted to it. They only want to feel that one emotion. If something happens to them that causes them to feel differently, they push it away right away. Yeah, they deny it. They say it's not there, and they ignore it. Yeah, and they're totally living in a fantasy after that, because they want to stay in that emotion that they like. So it never leaves. If it can't leave, then they cannot develop emotionally or spiritually. So that means 2 of the 4 parts go down. Half of the self goes down. And that means they're eventually going to become weak-minded, and they're going to get physically sick. Usually this is the bowels area, yeah, the stomach and the intestines and stuff. That's going to go down first. And then other things attached to that are going to go down next. It's a horrible way to die. But that's what happens. Yeah, and then other addictions can lead to other things too, like bulimia, anorexia, things like that. They're all connected to each other. They're all addictions. And what this is doing is saying, that the one emotion that they're trying to stay in, they say that's good and the rest is bad. So they try to avoid it. See, they're separating themselves from the others. Yeah? And that's saying, their favorite emotion is the best one, and the others are no good. So they're creating 2 groups here. That's duality. Yeah? And this addictive way of thinking affects everything they do. Yeah, it affects everything they do. Every part of their lifestyle it affects. It's like a virus, yeah? It seeps through the other parts of the self too. It destroys the self is what happens. It's a duality. Another way to bring duality is when people separate themselves because of a belief. Yeah, and they'll say, you know what, this is my idea and it's better than everything else, and if you disagree with me, you're the enemy. Yeah, and if you continue to disagree with me, even after I prove you're stupid, and you still disagree with me, I'm gonna kill you. See, that's oppression. That's bringing in another duality. It's separating everything into 2 groups. So anything that causes a person to separate everything into 2 sides of, the one they like and the one they don't like, that's a duality. And that leads to them oppressing others. And sometimes they'll use their skin color, and that's racism. Sometimes it's a belief system, and that's a religion. Sometimes it's a culture, and that's ethnocentrism. When they say their culture is better than others, or they'll say, we're smarter, so if we just do things our way, you know, you'll be better off. That's paternalism. And then they set up their rules and say our way is the only way, and that's dogma. And religion comes from that too. That's all duality, separating things into two groups. But Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least three perspectives, not perspectives, three components to every situation, at least three. So we're taught to look for three parts. And sometimes there's more than three, but first look for three. And once you see the three parts, start learning from it. Start getting to know it. And if there's a fourth part, you'll see it at that time. Maybe there's even a fifth part too. You never know. But in Lakota Star Knowledge, you learn that you always look for three parts and learn from them. But see, what dualistic people do is they might do that, but they're going to choose the one they like, and they're going to only do that one, and the others they reject. So they divide it into two groups. So if there's at least three perspectives, they only choose one and reject two. That means they only accept 1/3 of the reality of that situation. That 1/3 is 33%. So they don't see the totality of reality. And the more they live this way, the more closed-minded they become, the less of reality they can comprehend. And they're getting sick, because they only see things in twos. And they only choose one and reject the others. That's duality. That's why the world is the way it is, with religions and political ideologies and racism and paternalism, all that crap happening, that all comes from duality. So how do we fix that? You see, we can't run from it, because if we run from it or if we try to destroy it, we're actually becoming dualistic when we do that, because we're saying it's bad. So we treat it like a difficulty. What can we learn from it? Maybe we can add something to it and it totally fixes it. Or maybe we take something out of it and it works. So if you check it out. And sometimes you just leave it alone. It's just total unhealthy. You just leave it alone, because it's going to destroy itself. So, but you check it out first. And then you make your call. So anyway, that's how it is. This is the foundation of the show. So these are just foundation thoughts. More come after that. For example, like attracts like. So if you live in a healthy way, you're going to attract somebody healthy. If you live in a dualistic way, you're going to attract a dualistic partner. And dualism, remember what I said, there's always one side opposing the other, trying to oppress the other, which means one side is going to be an oppressor and the other side is going to be a victim. And they have things in common, because they're both dualistic. They only see things in twos. And so they develop low self-esteem, they develop low self-worth, because they feel the need to put others down. And they have emotional insecurity and inferiority complexes, and they need somebody to tell them they're good. That's outside validation. They use all kinds of methods to oppress others. Like one is appeal to authority. This is where they try to, they present themselves to the public in such a way that to get the public to view them as an expert. The Indians today do this all the time. When you hear an Indian stand up and he says, my Indian name is whatever, and I come from a long line of medicine men, and I'm a descendant of many great chiefs, and I did this certain ceremony 28 years, and I carry a pipe, and see what he's doing is he's bragging. Even if it is true, you don't say that because that's linear thinking. Yeah, it's like, look at how far I've come. That means I'm better. That's only looking at things happening in one direction. That's not the ancestral way. Yeah, that's really linear thinking, and it's trying, like I said, it's trying to get people to think that, wow, that guy, that's pretty impressive what he just said. So he must be an expert. Yeah, and this, when people think like that, this shows you that everybody involved in that communication is unhealthy. A traditional Lakota person that knows the ancestral way is going to know that this is wrong because he's violating one of the 7 virtues. Humility. Yeah? When a person presents themselves to the world, to a group, what he does is he's going to apologize firstly to the older people. Yeah, that's because he's going to say, I know you have more experience than me, so I apologize to you. And then he says, but I just want to share my thoughts with you. That's all. I don't want to change anything. I just want to share my thoughts and see what you think. Maybe you can help me. See, this is how they talk. And then they'll say, and this is my name, and my grandfather is this guy, and my grandmother is this, and so those are my relatives. In case some of you know those people, then I'm your relative. See, he's trying to establish a bond with the people when he talks like that. Then he says his idea. Although he's also going to say, I'm Ikje. If he's a man, he's going to say, I'm Ikje Wichasha. If it's a woman, she's going to say, I'm Ikje Wiyan. He's not going to say he's Lakota. He's going to say he's Ikje. That's it. Then he says his idea. See, he presented himself in a humble way. And people who are traditional are going to recognize it, and they're going to say, this is a humble man. Yeah, pay attention to what he says, because he knows the virtues and he's living them. So this is who the old people are going to listen to. Yeah, that's how that works. A lot of young Lakota people today, they really like to brag like that. Yeah, they like to say, yeah, I'm a descendant of Chief so and so, and all this, and they're really, 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 really not humble at all. So when you are living healthy, that includes being humble. Yeah, always remember that. That includes living a humble life. When people today, young Lakota people, they talk like that, and they say, I'm a descendant of Chief so and so, and this doesn't mean anything. What this is doing is that this person is trying to rise above others. He's trying to be an authority. Yeah, in Western society they do that. Yeah, I am descended from King Louis the 22nd, and so that means I'm royalty and I'm better than you. Yeah, see, that's what that is. Yeah, so when Indians are saying I'm descended from Chief so and so, that's the same. It's the same thought process. This is not the way traditional people talk. Yeah, you have to earn your own deeds. You cannot live upon the deeds of your ancestors. You have to make your own accomplishments. Yeah, that's how that works. So you have to be humble. That's one of the virtues. And so when you even if you visit websites and you see somebody says they're a descendant of this person and descendant of that person, just go to another website because this person is not being humble, which means their message is going to be tainted. It might have some truth to it, but not enough. Yeah, it's going to have a lot of unhealthiness to it too. So this is if you're healthy, you understand what I just said, okay? And if you're doing what I just, if you are saying you're descended from chief so and so and all that, shame on you, yeah, because you're not being humble. And if you're saying, you see, here's another phrase people use: I was raised by my elders. Yeah, and this is baloney. Yeah, and let me explain to you why. Yeah, there's an experience that Indian people went through, and a lot of people don't know about it. And but I think people need to be aware of it because it explains a lot of things, and a lot of Indian people don't want to talk about this because it's really, really, it's a difficult thing, you know. And another thing is this: that most Indians don't even know about this experience. This happened to their great grandparents, and they have no clue that this experience happened because it was so traumatic they didn't want to talk about it. But the thing is, it resulted in our nation becoming emotionally underdeveloped. And that's one part of the self. If one part of the self is emotionally underdeveloped, then the rest of the self is sick too. Yeah? And that's probably the reason why young Lakota people today get up and talk like that, saying they're descended from Chief so and so. That this is probably one of the reasons why they're not humble, because they don't know that that's a virtue. So they're not acting very much like the ancestors whatsoever. Yeah, I know that's going to piss off a lot of Lakota people, but you know what? I'm right. And you can disagree with me. I don't care. Yeah? Because I'm not trying to force my beliefs down your throat, because I'm not dualistic, but I know I'm right. And you can disagree with me, and that's totally fine with me. I really don't care. Yeah, but if you say you were raised by your elders, that doesn't mean anything. And this is the reason why. Back in the late 1800s, when we were placed on reservations, there were prison camps in the beginning. And this is a situation where we couldn't leave, we were not allowed to hunt. Our knives and guns were taken from us, and we were only allowed to eat whatever the American government gave to us, which was really no good food. The quality of the food was okay when it left places like Chicago and stuff like that, but once it got to, you know, some of these train stations between there and the reservation, a lot of these handlers would sell it, and then they would buy old food and put that in there instead, and these middlemen would make a lot of money. Yeah, so what we got on the reservation was bullshit food. Yeah, it was really no good. And we ended up getting all kinds of diseases like heart diseases, hypertension, diabetes, you know, things like that. And then at the same time, our language and ceremonies were declared illegal by the United States. So we were hit physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Soon after that, our minds became weak. And these, as I said earlier, these are the four parts of the self. So with the four parts of the self being sick, we lost our connection to our sacred center. So we started to focus on communicating away from that. And then the priests came from the various churches, and they learned our ways and said that since our ways conflict with the Bible, that our ways are evil, that they come from Satan, they come from the devil. So in our weakened states, we slowly began to accept that. Now, another thing is that there were some Lakota people that didn't want to accept that. They wanted to hang on to the traditional Lakota Star Knowledge ways. And if they revolted, they were sent to a mental hospital in Canton, South Dakota, which was set up for all reluctant Indians in America that did not want to become Christianized. They were sent there. And these church priests also committed the medicine women, holy men, holy women. They committed all of them to these mental asylums too. This way, the people would not go to them for help, that they would come to the churches. They wanted the Indian people to only go to the priests and not their traditional healers. So they sent the healers to the healers to this mental asylum to die. And if you are radical, you were sent there to die too. Yeah. So while this is happening, the priests are saying to the Indian people, if you believe our way, we will help your children. And so, there was a very, very dire straits time. And so a lot of Indians became Christians because of that. Like I said, we were weak-minded too at that point. And those who stuck it out, there were people who refused to accept Christianity, but they went to church anyway. What they were doing was they were putting up a candy store front. On the outside, they were acting like good little Christian Indians, but on the inside, they weren't. They were Star Knowledge people. Yeah? They did this because they didn't want to get sent to that mental asylum to die. That's sad, isn't it? But that's part of what happened back then. And it's because of these people who maintained this knowledge in secret. Thanks to them, they passed it down, to certain people like me, and we still have this knowledge. And I have this show, and I'm sharing it with you. Because this regards the sacred center. And we all have that. Yeah? This is not a Lakota thing. This is a Ikje Oyate thing. Ikje Oyate means human being. When you live this way, as I said in the beginning, you communicate as a human, not as a Lakota, not as a German, or a Japanese, or an African. You communicate as a human. Yeah? That's really important to know. So, that's how it was back then. Yeah? Now remember I said that the priest said to the Indians, we will help your children. So, they took the children away from the parents, sent them to boarding school hundreds of miles away, where these children were tortured to speak only English and learn the civilized Christian way. If they spoke about home, they were tortured. These schools didn't do background checks in those days. Yeah, the pay was really low, so they got really no good teachers in these schools. A lot of these teachers were sadistic. They got sexual pleasure from torturing people. And here, this is like summer holiday camp for them. And the same thing for perverts. A lot of perverts now had their pick of the litter, and they could get away with it. That's what happened. A lot of these children were murdered, they were killed, they were raped, they were molested. And there's a lot of unmarked graves near these schools. Not all of these children are accounted for. So, those who made it through, what they learned was whatever they saw. Because a lot of these children never went back home. They were told by the priests that their families had died and that there was nobody there. And that broke their hearts. This is why some of these children, they were so sad they couldn't eat. And they ended up starving themselves to death. And those who made it through, like I said, they didn't really survive because they were not able to process all these emotional traumas that they experienced. They didn't know how, because the only adults that were around them were these unhealthy, abusive people, teachers, dorm matrons, cooks, janitors, priests. They were all unhealthy to them. That's all they knew. They learned how to become victims, and they learned how to become abusers to those who they considered weaker than themselves. So they didn't really survive. A lot of these children that made it through these schools, they had a lot of traumas that they didn't know how to deal with, because all they saw was abuse. That's what they learned. There was no adult healthy role models to emulate. And remember, I said these children were told that their families were all dead, so they didn't go back during summer holiday. They just stayed at these schools and worked. So when they left these schools, they tried to live in mainstream America. Nobody accepted them. They would say, you're a heathen. You're a dirty Indian. So they couldn't even get jobs off the reservation. And when they went back to the reservation, to their people, they ran into more problems. Many, many times they were not even accepted by their own people, because their own people were saying, you're too white. You act like a white man. So they're caught in between. So a lot of them turned to alcohol to try to hide all of it, to try to forget everything. They turned to alcohol, and then later drugs. There were some who tried to make it. They married each other because they knew each other went through the same thing. And they didn't want their children to go through what they went through. So they didn't teach them the language. They didn't teach them the culture. Those children, the children of these first generation boarding school people, those children are today's elders. When they were born, they didn't learn the language. They didn't learn Lakota Star knowledge. They never got the opportunity to. When you look at an old person on the reservation today, they're not the connection to the ancient past. No, they were born in a Christian background at a time when the reservations were strongly Christian. So this is what happened. That's a native experience that a lot of people don't realize. This is what happened all over America and Canada too. So the next generation, they are sent to boarding school too. No choice. It's a little bit better, but they're still abused. They're still getting treated really no good. And so they grow up, have children, and they don't teach their children anything. What can they teach them? They don't know anything concerning their own language. This is why today most people cannot speak their own language, and what little cultural information they know, is Christianized, meaning it's dualistic, and it's not the original ancient form. Okay, so the first generation of Indian kids that were sent to boarding school, since all around them were unhealthy adults who did nothing but abuse them, they didn't receive healthy parenting. They missed things that they should have learned about life. So they're lacking emotional development. So when they grow up, and those who make it through these boarding schools and then they have children, those children are also lacking that emotional support, that emotional development, because the parents don't know how to do it. Yeah? All they knew and all they learned was abuse. All they experienced in these schools was abuse. So they have a hard time trying to be a healthy parent. So they do the best that they can. But the children still are not receiving the proper emotional development, the experiences that healthy children should receive from healthy parents. They're still missing that. And so when that second generation grows up, they know even less concerning healthy parenting. And so their children receive even less. And every time this happens, the next generation becomes more dualistic than the previous one. So let me try to say that again. The first generation boarding school kids, they didn't receive proper parenting skills. So when they have children, their children are not receiving healthy training that they should be receiving. They're receiving even less than their parents. Now that second generation, when they grow up, see, they know even less. So when they have children, those children are receiving even less, and it gets worse with each generation, which also means that the less healthy emotional development they receive, the more dualistic they become. So with each generation is more becoming emotionally underdeveloped, they're also becoming more dualistic. So today, it's a huge mess on the reservation. We're incredibly, as a whole, we're incredibly underdeveloped emotionally, and we are incredibly dualistic. We're quick to attack each other. We're quick to pull each other down. We're just like the rest of the civilized, dualistic world. Notice I didn't say white man, because this is all over the world. It's not just among white countries. It's all over the world. Wherever there is a dualistic ideology, where one gender is considered less than and property of the other gender, you're going to have incredibly underdeveloped emotional people, which equals incredibly dualistic people. And that is unhealthy. So that started by the time of the late 1800s on the reservation.